everybody wants their employees to be healthy, but being healthy for you on the podcast, I made those really annoying quotation mark fingers, right? Like, what does that mean? And that means different things to different people. And so it's not one size fits all. It's a really flexible, definition based on your stage of life, where you are. And I think an awareness of wellness as this sort of amorphous, different things at different times for people would be fantastic. I think wellness, like capital W, wellness has a bit of a negative connotation that like you must be very thin and muscular and do hot, yoga or something. But that's not it. It's like walking your dog. It's your grandma who can carry her groceries into her house still at 95. And she gets them after she goes and plays cards, right? It's like strong communities.
Welcome, everyone, to the Integrative Nurse Coaches in Action podcast. My name is Nicole Viano. I am your host, and I'm really grateful that you're here with us today. So, today we have an exciting guest who is doing something that many nurses would love to be doing. Well, I won't say that all the nurses want to do this, but I think a lot of our nurse coaches out there would love to have a job like this guest. So let's welcome Alison Boser, who is the first wellness nurse at a local hospital, and she lives in Tucson, Arizona. So welcome, Alison.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here, Nicole.
Yes. Well, we're excited and we want to learn all the nuts and bolts of what you're doing. But before we go there, we love to take a trip down history lane. So we love to know a little bit about you and why you even wanted to be a nurse.
Oh gosh. Well, my story about wanting to be a nurse is not as dreamy as other people's stories. I had worked a bunch of different jobs first, a lot of jobs that required like suits and horrible things like heels. And one day I decided that I just like never wanted to wear heels or a suit jacket again. And I also really wanted to be able to buy a midweek ski pass and ski like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays. So I did feel embarrassed by this when I went to nursing school. And I mean, of course, I wanted to help people. But part of the draw for me of nursing was the lifestyle of the scheduling. So
I love that. So, nursing is a second career for you, and you love this schedule. And of course, you wanted to help people because, of
yes.
course,
Yeah.
and that seemed to be the big draw. So tell us what you did before nursing.
Oh, sure. So I had a bunch of different jobs. I was a Parks and Rec kid. I worked at my local library. And then after college, I kind of bopped around. I did a bunch of really fun tourism type jobs. Like I worked at a ski resort, I worked at a national park, and I kind of found my way into like sales and marketing for conference and hotel venues. So I worked at a big ski resort. I worked at a casino as like an events planner and coordinator in Reno, Nevada. And I worked at a big hotel in downtown Anchorage. And then I left that and I did recruiting. So again, still with the suit jacket, but I did like headhunting and recruiting for several years. And then one day just really wanted a job that was much more tangible and hands-on, where I could feel like I was directly of use to people. So not entirely selfish. But I did also want the ability to have weekdays off. And so I went to our local vocational school and became a CNA because I had already had a couple careers. So I wanted to make sure this was in fact going to be a good fit for me and that I was going to be okay touching people because I'd been in a lot of low touch jobs. So I became like a certified nurse's aide and I worked for a while doing that and I did love it. And so then I just proceeded on to nursing school. Do you want to hear about what I did as a nurse?
Sure, let's go there.
Sure. So, as a nurse, I did an accelerated BSN program, which was really really fun. It was in the Midwest, so I was back in my hometown. I had a great cohort. We learned a ton, and I worked at a transitional care center when I got back to Anchorage, which, if you are a new nurse out there, this is a fantastic first job. I know everyone wants to go ER, ICU, straight to the hospital, but working in a transitional care center is a great like skills turn relational job. It's a fantastic place to start. And then at about a year, I went to the ER. So the rest of my career was emergency trauma, and I did do like a fellowship or new grad type residency doing that. So everything was about being really efficient and task oriented. And then now that's like the opposite of what I do. So it's pretty exciting.
So you had such a varied career. I mean,
I
I love the idea of seeing you or imagining you in heels and a suit.
Woof.
And now I see you in scrubs or just regular clothes, right?
Yes,
And then just, being a CNA, that's a tough role. That's a
that's
tough
a
role for,
really tough role.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and then doing that work in transitional care and then moving into ED. And so, yeah. So then you're in ED, and
Mhm.
then how did you get to the role where you're at now as this wellness nurse in a hospital?
Sure. So I did some travel nursing in the ER throughout the pandemic, and then needed to get some sunshine. So we came down to Tucson. So I arrived here like as a seasonal or contract nurse, and got a different kind of job. So I worked in our observation unit. And then the hospital I work at, Tucson Medical Center, actually has an entire wellness department, which I had never worked at a hospital that had that. And so I started using their services. They had a coach. They were not a nurse. They were a like a personal and physical trainer type coach. They had all these wellness programs for nurses. You could earn money towards your, you know, insurance. They did organized hikes. And I was sitting there in that office one day after a free yoga class that they offer. And I said to my coach who worked there, why don't I work somewhere like this? Like, this is fantastic. And I think in some ways I spoke it into being. I don't know if we're allowed to say that. But her contract was ending. And so I ended up meeting with the director, and I didn't want the job at first. I was like, no, I'm really happy on my unit. I'm not looking for something different. Um, but if you were going to have someone do this, I had all these ideas, right? So I met with them, and then I just kept thinking about the job and thinking about like what could a bedside RN do to improve the health and wellness and work environment of all of their hospital colleagues? Like, I couldn't stop thinking about it. And so about a month or two later, I wrote them an email again and was like, I'm still not interested. Obviously, I was. But here's my very long list of programs and ideas I think you should consider for whoever takes this job. So then I went in and met with them, and it was just kind of one person at first, and more people from the office just sort of like trickled into the interview. And then by the end, I think we'd all talked ourselves into me having the job. So it was really neat how it happened.
Wonderful. See, you must have talked it into existence.
Well, I had never imagined, like, as a 12-hour shift bedside nurse. I had never imagined the ability to do yoga as part of my day at work before. Like, that seems so foreign, right? Like, getting food and drink seemed like really crushing it when I was working bedside. So just having a completely different pace, yeah, I don't know, it did something in my brain where I was like, "Oh, nurses can do this? Like, interesting."
Hmm. So this particular organization never had a nurse in this role as a full-time position. So this is like a brand new role that the organization
Mhm.
saw as a value to the organization to bring a nurse in as a full-time wellness component.
Yeah.
So you are essentially creating this job as you go, right?
Yes, and that, is both really exciting and a nice, beautiful, clean canvas for being creative, but also a lot of pressure. If you can imagine, all the times you were working and thinking, "It would be cool if this happened." I do feel some internal pressure to make sure, like, we're putting really good stuff out there, making really good opportunities for staff. Because I would love for every hospital and every health organization to have a nurse coach, right? To have a wellness focused RN that worked on that. And I think, as many of us know, if you've ever tried to explain your job to someone who's not clinical or not a nurse, it's really difficult, right? Or if you've ever left the bedside, um, it can be difficult for people who've never done it to understand, what it's like in the inner workings of the hospital. So in some ways, I'm a little bit of a spy too, because I'm like, well, that's not going to work for 12-hour nurses because of X, Y, or Z. And so it's a great opportunity.
That's funny that you see it as being a spy. I would think that you're our spokesperson for all the nurses at the bedside, really and
Sure,
truly.
maybe like a translator, like a clinical to non-clinical translator or advocate would probably be a more positive way to say that. Certainly. And
Well,
words
in a way, it's
matter.
kind
I
of like a
agree.
spy. You're on like a fly on the wall, and you can see all the aspects and know what's going to work and what's not going to work. So tell us a little bit, like maybe like a day in the life of Allison in this role.
Oh, sure. So the great thing about being able to answer this question is that there's really no typical day, but I'll give you a sampling of things I work on during the week. So I do a number of one-to-one coaching sessions with any employees. So I did go through the Inca Nurse Coach program and graduated from that. So for staff members who want to come and talk or make a plan or distill their concerns or goals, we offer that one-on-one. And I do those both in person. I can do them remotely. We have remote workers, and sometimes we do them walking or hiking. If it's, I have a new grad whose goal is to get more physical activity and to spend more time outside. So that's what we do when we meet to coach. We go outside and we walk, um, which is, I think, pretty special. I don't think all new grads have that opportunity to have that level of mentorship and support. So I have those in my day. So I also am on our workplace violence committee. So anytime an employee is unfortunately involved in a workplace violence incident, I reach out to them and make sure they're aware of all the broad resources we have. And I'm available to talk then. They get my personal cell phone number. For some people, they're able to come right back to work, and other people need to make a plan to feel safe at work again. So we work on that. I also go to departments that have maybe had an unexpected patient loss or a really hard time and do some kind of crisis intervention group support. I've done office hours before for units that are maybe struggling or their manager just wants them to have a little TLC. So I'll get bagels and coffee and kind of hang out in their break room just as an extra person to, they can vent or talk or ask questions. I am lucky. I get to work with you sometimes with the new graduate nurses, which is really rewarding, because a lot of nurses, they didn't know what they were getting into. They thought they did, and navigating the realities of our profession with, having a full life outside of work, is pretty special too. And then I just spend a lot of time developing new programs. And I'm really lucky. I have a phenomenal director, and her mode is just like, try it. Like, we don't know, so try it. So we started doing an online class. This is my new favorite thing, is that we're doing wellness at your workspace. So I teach a 7-minute weightlifting class over Teams like this. So you can just pop on 7 minutes, better than 0 minutes, gets you moving. We record it so night shift can do it later if they want. And then we've expanded that. So I work with our spiritual care department as well as our healing arts department, which also great departments to have. So we do some meditation, we do some desk mobility and stretching work. So it's a real mix of activities.
I think what you're explaining is that you don't have a day-to-day specific schedule. In fact, you are creating your work as you go. So you're seeing, what does our
Yeah.
hospital need? I mean, 7 minutes of lifting weights. I mean, who doesn't have 7 minutes? Well, probably not a lot of nurses have 7 minutes. They
Sure.
certainly don't have 30 minutes. So,
Yeah.
you really have pared that down to say, okay, even 7 minutes is better than 0 minutes, is what I heard you say, which is
Yeah.
so great. I mean, they can pop on, they can watch it later. You're really listening, and discovering and going out there and figuring out what people would be attracted to and what calls to people as well.
Yes.
Um, so tell us some more, and really the unique understanding is that your day to day is not exactly the same every day.
Right, and I would say that because of the coaching aspect of it, I do get that kind of inside scoop we talked about what's really weighing on people. Like, sometimes you get
Mhm.
themes and everyone's sort of having the same challenge one week. So, if everybody is struggling with low energy and we look at what people are eating, and I need to, you know, curate a bunch of high protein, high fiber, easy to make recipes so that nurses and staff can be fueled at their shift. That's what I'll work on. Oh, I forgot to mention my very favorite thing that was the first thing I started when I got there is that we started a couple book clubs at the hospital. So, and they're kind of a lure, right? Like, come in and we're going to talk about fiction. But if you're a reader, when you talk about fiction, what are you talking about? Ideas, feelings, possibilities, getting to know other people in kind of a gentle way. That's building connections and community throughout the hospital. So, you're like, oh man, I have a problem and I really need this. Oh, actually, I know the gal who's the manager of that department and I can call her directly. So it's paid pretty big dividends, I think, for the community that's involved in it. So,
Mm,
yeah, not a typical week. Very responsive to what the concerns are in the hospital, which I enjoy.
I love it. I love it. And I think it's really well needed in all hospitals to have a boots on the ground RN who can be there, who shows up in ways that are truly like fun ways, like book clubs and these
Mhm.
classes and so forth, and also the important times when there is an unexpected loss, or I also heard you say workplace violence,
Sure.
losses of colleagues. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
much that really goes on in the day-to-day lives of nurses on the floor when you're thinking of, however many units you have in an organization and those little sub pods and the needs specific to those areas. So you're really showing up in a different way, and they know that you're a nurse, so you don't have to spend energy or prove yourself because it's like,
Right.
no, I work at the bedside too. So yeah.
I do think that showing up phrase that we use is I think there's some also special stuff there as a nurse coach, that you really dig into with Inca's training, and that, showing up physically to these units on Teams calls, on a digital live weightlifting class, but also in person, that gift of presence that I think you really work on fine tuning in the training, being more comfortable with silence, right? Having, like, let's just take a couple deep breaths together. I feel like when I was in my Inca training, I spent half the time just writing down the really exceptional things that my instructor said, like, oh, I'm going to remember that. Knowing how to be with people who are having a hard time and both give them space, but ask questions that help them dig in a little bit or be comfortable. And those things, you're physically present, but you're also offering this sort of emotional and intellectual presence, if you will.
Mhm.
Um, and also that sort of demonstrates to people how they can be supported, right? Because none of us have a hard time alone. And when a nurse helps a patient or a family that's going through a hard time, that's not the only one, right? So when they are able to support, or when I'm able to support someone in a way that is helpful, it then becomes a blueprint for everybody, like rippling out, right? Or like amplifying kind of that support because they've seen it demonstrated. So it does add pressure to when you go to the coffee shop and get your coffee, that you want to make sure you're showing up fully and graciously in all elements of your day, because part of my job is showing that you can do that.
Mm, yeah, I love that. So showing up physically, yes, showing up with deep presence and a true understanding and really the empathy, because you do understand as a nurse what it's like to be faced with a unexpected patient loss or death, or those really tough situations, the families who are struggling and acting out, or whatever that is. What that feels like, what that looks like, and how that like can get into your heart sometimes. So just that really deep connection that you can have with another nurse is really irreplaceable.
It's pretty special, and then just like always in nursing, you have the ability to, escalate to higher levels of care, if you will. So, if I'm having a particularly long chat with someone who really needs spiritual care resources, I feel like I have a pretty close relationship with the spiritual care department, and they also see our employees, right? They're not just for patients. They're there to support people. So that's I think really special.
Mm,
And then also, our hospital does have quite a bit of mental health resources and other forms of support. Like the hospital will pay for Headspace, which includes, therapy or psychiatry. So
mm,
the ability to also sit with people when they're having, like employees who are having the worst day of their life, and listen to them, and then also navigate them to more help. It also feels, I don't wanna say satisfying, but it's nice to be able to, like, complete the circle for them. Like,
mm,
I'm not sending them home with a pamphlet. They can come to my office. We will log on. We will do it together. They will not be wandering through the wilderness of, employee assistance programs alone. I have tried to use all of our programming so that I can genuinely speak to whether it is easy or not easy to use.
mm. That's really cool that you've done that. That you've actually like tried all the programs, so you actually are the voice to say, okay, here's how it works, here's how it really works, and here are
Yeah.
the things that maybe are a little tricky, but we'll work through them together.
Yes, and I'm nerdy, so I even time it every time. So I can be like, "This is gonna take you 12 minutes. I promise. It's only 12 minutes start to finish."
So important for the nurse, right? For any
Yeah,
nurses, for any human, really. We want to know
yeah,
what's the nuts and bolts. How am I going to get through this fast? It's scary to say that you need the help, I think, sometimes too.
yeah,
And so having someone who is like side by side, helping you along and the process is just a beautiful thing.
yeah.
Yes. All right. So some other questions that kind of came up as you were talking um, are, what are the best times of your day?
Ooh, the best times of my day. Well, I will share that twice in the last 12 months, a new graduate nurse has sort of pulled me aside and said, "I would like to be a wellness nurse one day. How do I do that?" And I mean, I just put that on my list of, like, when you count your blessings, right?
Mm,
Um, I would I love that when people like the work and think they would like to do the work, because those are 2 different things. So I like that. I do love when I check in regularly with, employees that I'm coaching, whether it's, nurses or other employees. And when they will like text me or email me and be like, I met my goal, right? Like I did it and I told you I would text you when I did it and I did. I also sort of love when they graduate from coaching, like when they come and they are like have their momentum and then they like don't need to come back. It feels great to help people adjust their course and then just see them thriving.
Very
Also, I
good.
love baked potato bar day. It comes
Oh, yeah.
twice a month. Oh, I also love that.
That sounds great. Oh my goodness. That's wonderful. So, what are some of the challenges that you face?
Sure. I feel that what I am doing and attempting to track, and this will resonate for anyone who also identifies as a caregiver, is that a lot of the really, really excellent things that we do in a day, whether we're bedside or in another role, are invisible, right? Like great customer service is invisible. Making someone feel supported is sort of invisible. It's not billable. You can't be like, I packaged 10 boxes versus I made 10 people feel heard. It's hard to quantify. In the same way that organizations, they try to do culture change. Well, how do you measure that, right? So I feel like I work in this sort of qualitative space, a very, social, cultural, emotions, job satisfaction. It's lovely when I have a concrete example and I can say, this person was going to quit their job and they didn't. That like is a quantitative example of the effects of my job. Um, so that I think is hard to feel like sometimes I have like metrics to show my success.
Mm. Yeah, that's a really great point because there it's limited the amount of metrics that we have to support this type of work. And we also don't want to necessarily go down the rabbit hole of too much metrics, like too many
Right.
metrics, right? Because then it takes away this beautiful heart-centered approach to helping someone figure out their needs, right? Or taking action on those needs. Um, and I also really like when you do hear those stories of like the testimonials or like, yeah, I was going to quit and now I'm not quitting. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a huge money savings for an organization. When I think
Right.
the average, what is the average like startup for an RN is like $55,000. So saving that nurse is saving the organization at least $55,000, at least at minimum, right?
Sure.
More than that.
And with our profession, right, when we lose nurses, we often don't get them back, right? When nurses
Right.
take a break from nursing, they try it, they don't make it through their first fellowship, their first year, they feel like it's not for them. Now our entire society has lost this skilled caregiver,
Mm.
right? So there is an economic impact directly for our organization, but also, all the time and work that that individual put in to get those skills and education.
Mm.
Um, we want some stewardship of that desire to care for others as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's a really great point because sometimes you don't think of that aspect. I think a lot of maybe some organizations may think, oh, well, they'll just go to another organization. Grass is always greener. And yet, a lot of nurses actually do step away from the profession completely. So they've
Yeah.
invested all that time and energy and money out of their own pocket to go to school, and that is lost. And then we've of course lost a beautiful nurse who could potentially be working for 25 years, and now they no longer want to do that job anymore. Yeah, the impacts are great.
Yeah. I mean, I have thought about maybe just walking around the hospital with like a little notepad and being like, 18 people smiled at me. So that's how I measure my effect on the hospital.
My
But
energies giving
yeah,
and
some
taking.
people might just be smiley, you know?
I love it. So what are some, up and coming programs or goals that you're working towards?
Okay. So, I mean, if we're
Or maybe
talking
even dreaming about, how about that?
Sure. Well, I was just thinking about my global wellness nurse revolution, right? I think that what you want is a nurse with some experience to go through a coaching program, to have the skills to be present, to listen, to ask really good questions, to help people identify their own goals. But how that would be so fantastic if you finished your primary like health appointment and then you went and saw the nurse coach that worked for them. Right? Because sometimes it's as simple as like, well, you need to take vitamins. Which vitamins? I don't like to swallow. Like, there's so many layers, as anyone knows if they've ever tried to do a habit. And I think that this could be great for like non-healthcare facilities, right? Like everybody wants their employees to be healthy, but being healthy for you on the podcast, I made those really annoying quotation mark fingers, right? Like, what does that mean? And that means different things to different people. And so it's not one size fits all. It's a really flexible, definition based on your stage of life, where you are. And I think an awareness of wellness as this sort of amorphous different things at different times for people would be fantastic. I think wellness, like capital W, wellness has a bit of a negative connotation that like you must be very thin and muscular and do hop, yoga or something. But that's not it. It's like walking your dog. It's your grandma who can carry her groceries into her house still at 95. And she gets them after she goes and plays cards, right? It's like strong communities. So I'd love to see all of the skills from nurse coaching and all of the nurse coaches ripple out like that. My current little project I'm working on is figuring out a great high protein, high fiber meal prep for nurses, right? So they have 3 meals, 3 lunches, 3 dinners that like are going to actually completely fuel them throughout the day without Monster or Red Bull or Alani. But of course, everyone can do what they want to do. Um, I think that would be really amazing to see what strong, fueled nurses look like in a hospital.
Mhm.
World peace would be great. That's not on my to do list yet, but I'm thinking about it.
Of course you are. Don't stop there.
Well, I mean, nurses have an obligation to be anti violence, right? And anti war. Like, we cannot be for things that cause harm and suffering. Um, so, just, I guess, moving through the world knowing that, like, that's an important tenet, like, of our identity of nurses.
Mm. Yes, yes, it is.
Well, this got awfully serious, didn't it?
It's okay because I'm going to shift it anyway. So let's see about I know that you took this course recently and it was on recycling.
Oh, yes. Thank you
Yes.
for
So
remembering that.
yes.
So also as part of my job, I try to show up, in different ways that align with my goals as the hospital's wellness RN in our community, and in the hospital. So I'm a part of our pride committee and our sustainability committee. And the city of Tucson recently offered a master recycler class. So it was a 5-week program. You got to go on Wednesdays and learn about how to be an efficient and correct recycler. And so, I mean, that is environmental wellness is certainly a part of overall wellness. So that was a neat experience.
And
And
then
at
did
that,
you take that information and then bring it to the hospital and have a
yeah,
class?
yeah. So we have. I had worked with them previously to bring the city's composting. So our city does a food cycle program where you can take your composting to some central locations. But sometimes those classes are hard to get to for busy people. So 2 years in a row, good memory, Nicole. We had the city come and do their city composting program at the hospital. And I think we had over 50 people the first year, and we had about 40 the second year. But I also got to go on the news and talk about the program, which was pretty special. And everyone got a home compost bucket and codes for the compost location. Um, and we collected a bunch of cups for our community water stations, which were really neat. And the other thing that I learned in that program is, recycling or sustainability is similar to wellness in that there's all these different facets of it, right? So I learned about some really cool food waste initiatives and resources for people through that program, which I use myself and have also been really helpful for some of our new nurses or clients who are having food insecurity, right? I mean, it's really hard to meet your protein and fiber goals when you are paycheck to paycheck, or you don't have access to buying a ton of chicken at Costco. So I learned about the Too Good to Go app, which we have a lot of locations here in Tucson that do that, including Whole Foods
Mhm.
and also Flash Foods. So those have been just like huge money savers for people who use them. And it also, right, it saves all that labor, all that, we grew the strawberries and we don't want the strawberries to just go in the garbage, right? How do we get them into the mouths and bloodstreams of people who need them?
Yes. Yes. I love this connection to environment. Um, many people want to be connected more to how they can support the environment. And so what you did was you like went out and you looked for these opportunities. And also it was a perfect chance to become connected to the resources within the city that you live in. So
Yes.
you're connecting all of the pieces, right? So and then you become a resource for the hospital itself and the community.
Yeah, and I think if I personally have one, like, special skill, it is that, like, I'm good at knowing my resources, right? Like, as humans, we just cannot retain things. We can't retain all the things, right?
Mhm.
And the confidence to know, "I don't know that, but I know where I can look to find it," or, "I know someone who does know that," is is pretty important. But also that community aspect, it was pretty powerful to be with a group of citizens in my local community and also to be in a place where they called you a citizen, like just constantly, well, you're a citizen of our community. Being around people like that, it was really soul filling and everyone had their reusable utensils and their reusable, water bottle, and it was pretty great. And not specifically related to that element, but, you know, being in community, being part of a village is also a huge part of wellness, right? And, you can go to the gym and I don't know, crush your protein and, meditate every day, but you also you need some friends, right? You need people who can, yeah, pick you up from your day surgery. You need to pick other people up from your day surgery. There's a really fun thing that goes around the internet where they talk about, being a villager, right? Everyone wants to be a part of a village, but I think my job is also being a villager and demonstrating what that looks like.
Mm. Connecting all the dots. It's like a little web that
It
goes
is a
out.
web, and it might even be like if you can make your brain do it, it might be like a three-dimensional web, right? Like
Yeah,
it's not our connections are not just lateral. Yeah.
I love that. Yes. So you are doing some really incredible things and some really inspiring things and inspiring others. And also like there's this thread that's throughout this conversation, which is you're also learning to take care of yourself as well.
Mm. And that is so tricky, isn't it, Nicole?
It's
I
really
think,
tricky.
I was in the job for a bit and they want you to get your exercise in and drink your water. The office I work in, they sit and eat lunch together for their 30 minutes. Like they actually leave their desk and everyone goes out and they eat their homemade food, which just blew my mind. You are absolutely supposed to eat in community with others and not eat at your desk. But even Oh, this is such a juicy topic, right? Knowing what you're supposed to do and actually doing it, the space between those two things can be it can be a wide river, right? And then how do you cross it? Like how do you make it happen? So this actually segues into an awesome part of the Inca program, which was that as part of it, you had a small group cohort. So, I was paired with two other women and we had to do a triad coaching. So, I would coach Tanya, and Tanya would coach Marissa, and Marissa would coach me, and we would take turns, watching each other. And I mean, I probably everyone says this. I got the best group. I mean, we still meet like after our required sessions. We still met every week through the rest of our program, and we meet probably every 2 weeks or at least monthly now. We have a Zoom session to check in on how people are using it. Like one of the gals works at a functional medicine clinic now. So it's really neat to hear how she's doing that. Another gal is integrating it into like all of the education she does at the hospital. But also, these are the two RN coaches who hold me accountable for doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing. So I am, for the first time in my life, someone who exercises regularly. Like, I think in 14 months, I've missed one workout because I didn't think I could go that wasn't travel related. Never, never in my life have I been that consistent. So it does help to build a community that likes your good ideas, but also wants to see you complete them.
Mm, so
So,
good.
yeah, it is fun. And then side note, you use all this language, this coaching language. I don't, my husband this was a couple months ago, but I was like hemming and hawing, like, oh, was I going to go for my lap swim that day? And he said, you're going to love this. What I've been hearing you say, Allison, is that you'd like to be a swimmer. So you should probably go swim. And I was like, oh, someone's been spying on coaching class. And I did. I went and swam.
And you did.
I
Thanks,
mean, he
honey.
got me. He got
He
me
totally
so
got
good.
you.
Yeah.
He totally got you. That's amazing. Well, in our last few moments, I would love to ask the question that we always ask, and that is, and you're welcome to take a moment to just contemplate and take a breath. And the question is, what is on your heart that you would love to share with our listeners today?
So I just finished the book Severance by Ling Ma, and it is a pandemic novel, but it was written in 2013. So I had book club this week and we talked about it. But I do think that we all need to just give ourselves and our friends and our families and if you know, healthcare workers, a little bit of grace. This book did not touch on any of the medical parts of the pandemic. But for those of us who worked through that, that was such a huge disruptor for people's careers, their professions, their relationships, their lives. And just acknowledging that like rebuilding things takes time, right? And so if you are someone who used to have dinner parties pre-COVID and you're not quite back to having dinner parties yet, like don't forget that you did love them, right? And try, I don't know, I think that we can try to access some of that joy again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Well, before you go, let's say, like, how do we find you? If we want to find you,
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Alison Boser. I'm lucky. I work at Tucson Medical Center, which is, I mean, I work there, but they do not pay me to tell you this. It is the best hospital I've ever worked at. And I came to it because another traveler told me, like years before I got here, how great it was. I have a LinkedIn. I said that already. I'm on Instagram. My handle is how to love a nurse, because for those of us who are nurses or caregivers, it's how to love another one, but also yourself, right? Like, how do I love myself as a nurse? Um, how do you love, other people who do that work? And I'm also on Substack. Substack is kind of my new baby. I'm really into it, but you can be a little more long form. So if you care about being evidence based and having links, it's a great spot. I've been trying to put some good stuff on there. So either one, Substack or Instagram, it's how to love a nurse. I'd love to see you all there. Feel free to message me if you have any questions or just want to talk wellness nursing. I look forward to hearing from you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Allison. There's so many little nuggets and pearls that we can take away and just think about, contemplate. And thank you. Thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to us today.
Oh, thank you for having me and thank you for sharing all of yours.